episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now. Today, we're going to talk about the impacts of relationships. We're going to talk about what it means to try to parent a child after divorce and the challenges that can come with that. I am so blessed and honored to have two wonderful guests with me today. I have Joseph Adams, who is a licensed counselor, and I have Brian Thompson, the Brian Thompson, who is a buyer in the healthcare system. I am feeling excited because I really believe that we're going to learn some tips and tricks today of how we're going to be able to manage dealing with children after we've been through a divorce. So welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for being here. So, Brian, I really appreciate you willing to share your journey with the audience. Can you tell them about your story about being divorced and managing your child?
Sure. Well, I got divorced when my son was 10 years old, and then I relocated. So I was divorced and married 3 states away. And when I got divorced, I brought my son with me. So it was just, for me, it was the challenges of trying to parent him and do everything kind of on my own and with my wife, and away from his mother without her involvement.
So talk to us about that challenge. What was challenging about it? What were the things that you encountered after you did that separation?
The most challenging for me was thinking I had to do it all on my own, or we had to do it all, and we had to do it without her help, because I felt like if I asked for help, then I wouldn't be able to maintain custody, because it would come across like I either didn't know what I was doing or couldn't handle what I was doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't need help. So for me, it was trying to do it without that.
So having this fear and being very concerned about your son and how this looks and and moving forward, what did you do?
After thinking me and my wife could handle all of it, and we kind of ignored the emotional impact it would have on him of being away from his mom and then me not talking about her or not reaching out for her, not giving him the outlet to kind of talk about it or talk about his emotions around it. And eventually it affected everything in a negative way that we had to deal with it, or I had to bring it up and deal with it.
So how did it show up? Was it physical? Was it mental? Was it emotional? How did these things show up?
All of it. It was actually all of it. It was definitely emotional because you could sense that there was just a undertone or like a cloud of sorrow around him at times. And then with the pandemic, he got to go stay with her because they're doing online school anyway. And from the moment he went, it was like the house got brighter. Talking to him, he sounded better. He sounded more enthusiastic. It hasn't necessarily translated into schoolwork, but everything else around it has gotten better. He's definitely, it's put him in a position to be more accountable and to see kind of everything that he does, how it affects something further down the road or doesn't. If he doesn't, take initiative now, how it could come to the last minute and now you got to do all these things. So it's giving him, I learned that I was kind of babying him in a way and not demanding enough. And once I reached out, once he went up there and we decided, we'll try this and let him stay for a while, his mom, the help she gave us is he has to do a lot on his own. So a lot of stuff that I didn't want him to do because, I might have had to do it as a kid and I didn't like it, or I'm trying to think I'm giving him a better way, it alleviated him from having a lot of responsibility. And that happened to be our biggest issue. So with her, he has to take responsibility That's one of the bigger things that she demands of them, and so it's helping them a lot.
So, first, I want to commend you. It takes a lot of courage for a parent that has custody of a child to be able to do the right thing in terms of introspection of how did I play a role in this? What did I do? As well as the impact to the child. And it's not easy. And so I want to say to you, that that's something you should be very proud of the fact that regardless of what happened, you made a change and made a difference in that child's life. And it's so important as parents that we recognize that we can't be all of the solutions to everything all of the time, and to reach out for help when we need it. So let's talk a little bit about that help. You said in your story that you knew that changes had to happen about the way things were happening within your family unit, the things that you were experiencing, etc. We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, I'd like to explore that further. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
The thing that can cause us the biggest pain of not sharing our experiences is being embarrassed. And I just want you to know, don't be embarrassed. Don't be concerned that the thing that you're facing, the challenge that you're going through, the impacts that you're having are something that no one else is having. See, embarrassment begins to weigh on us physically, mentally, and emotionally. And there are solutions out there. And that's the whole purpose of talking about these stories, is to provide solutions and hope. Remember, you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. There are other people that can help you. So reach out, touch someone, and get that help. Look for that person that can provide for you what you need. So another opportunity to get a solution is always tune in to Hidden Stories, Healed Now. Welcome back. So let's continue our conversation of parenting after divorce. So before the break, I was asking you a question about what you did and your feelings. Can you share with us what that was for you?
Yeah, for me, it was first letting him go for it was going to be a few weeks while they were doing online learning, just so he can go up there, see his older sister up there, and just take some time with her. And then that way she would be able to see some of the behavioral things that we were talking about and possibly have a better solution or have some different insight. And once he got up there, everything kind of seemed to turn a corner for all of us involved. So talking to his mom and talking to him, he seemed more enthusiastic about being there. He seemed better about just everyday, day-to-day things. Mm-hmm. And between me and my wife, we definitely got closer because there wasn't that stress of what might happen today. And for me, I felt a lot better because I felt like I didn't have to divide my time as much, and I didn't have to take on the role of how are we going to fix it, as opposed to how are me, her, his mom, like how do we come together to fix it? It didn't seem to isolate everybody. And everybody just seemed overall more positive. So that's how it led to, well, maybe I'll let him stay there and see if it's different.
So, Mr. Adams, what are you hearing? What are the things that you are witnessing here from this story that are common, that happen, and that are challenges that we face in the family unit?
So when I listen to Brian, one of the things that I hear is that we have a transition. The family system is being changed. There was a divorce. There was a relocation. There was a new marriage, an establishment of a new family, blended family. So in that, though, everyone is dealing with those challenges. Everyone is grieving. Everyone's trying to make those adjustments. Now, let's say Brian here, and as I sit here, I'm thinking about what were the motives? What was the situation that caused him to bring his son along with?
It was being raised by my dad, seeming, and we talked about the generational stuff. So for me, it always just seemed like if I have a son, regardless what happens, I have to raise him. Like that's what happened to me. Obviously, dads know how to raise boys best. So I'm thinking, so yeah, it was, well, if I go, I have to be able to take him with me. And once I knew I could do that, it was, okay, then, I'll just make the move. I'll bring him along. We'll be fine. We'll do all the guy stuff and fix tools and all the stuff that I don't do by myself and whatever. And it'll just be fine. It'll just be like dad and son, and that's how it is. And it definitely wasn't.
So in that case, was there a possibility that only your needs were being met?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There was, if I could do it again, I would definitely have conversations and do things different. But at the time, that's what it felt like. It felt like you're the dad, you take the son, like you raise him to be a man, and that was it.
So when you look at all of the behavioral stuff, when I first met the family, the behavioral, the poor academic performance, the adjustment within the new family setting, it was a lot of oppositional behavior. And that's because things were happening that the young man had no control over. His choices, his thoughts, his decisions, as a matter of fact, I won't say they didn't matter, but he didn't think they mattered. And so therefore, he was at a place where he didn't feel valued, he didn't feel like he had a voice, he didn't feel like what he said or what he thought even made a difference.
So taking that one step further to, let's associate, so as our audience is listening to this, how do we let children know that their voice is being heard, even if we disagree with it? What are the things that we do so that they don't look at us as, I told you I didn't want this and you didn't do what I asked you to do, so therefore I don't matter, my decisions don't matter, you don't care about me? What should we do? How do we handle that?
So it's no different than any other relationship, where any other intimate relationship. When I say intimacy, we're not talking sexual. We're talking the ability to have a relationship where people are able to talk honestly, openly, share the challenges, appreciate the victories, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, sometimes in our family systems, kids learn that they have to appease or please the parent. And so therefore, I have to respect the parent. So we have to let our children know that we respect them. How do we do that? We honor them. We listen to them. We actually create an environment where they would feel loved, loving, that they would feel as though that they have a voice. That takes effort. That's not something that all of us are taught to do. In this particular scenario, that's exactly what we did. We kind of tried to cultivate an environment where the parents could foster his ability to speak about what's going on.
So when you disagree, how do you handle disagreements? When a child, you can put the environment there and say, look, I heard what you said. I respect your opinion. I listened to you, but mommy's going to make the decision of X because of Y. How do you handle those disagreements? And at the end, when they say, but I still wasn't heard because you didn't do what I wanted you to do.
Well, there's a couple of things. So at that particular point, where you have to be at a place where you are honest. The child has to believe that you really did hear them. If they're at a place where I'm speaking and it doesn't affect you, see, they're watching you. They're looking at your facial expression. They're listening to your tone of voice. They're watching all of your stuff as well. And so they're not really trusting you. So you got to create an environment where they feel comfortable, where they trust you. That's a real intimate relationship. That is no different than a spousal relationship or anything else. As a matter of fact, it should be. One of the things I think we struggle with as men, particularly men who have permanent tans, it's not all the time we grow up in environments where we have intimate relationships with our fathers. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the problem. Because we may not know how to share the things that we want to say. We may not know, we may not even realize that our own behaviors, our own thoughts, our own stuff is causing the challenge with the child.
We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap up and then get a question from our audience. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
You know, the thing that can cause us the biggest pain of not sharing our experiences is being embarrassed. And I just want you to know, don't be embarrassed. Don't be concerned that the thing that you're facing, the challenge that you're going through, the impacts that you're having are something that no one else is having. See, embarrassment begins to weigh on us physically, mentally, and emotionally. And there are solutions out there. And that's the whole purpose of talking about these stories, is to provide solutions and hope. Remember, you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. There are other people that can help you. So reach out, touch someone, and get that help. Look for that person that can provide for you what you need. So another opportunity to get a solution is always tune in to Hidden Stories, Healed Now. Welcome back. So to wrap up, as we were talking, Brian, I really would like to ask you for one or two things that you would say that you learned through the process, different than what we have discussed, or a tip that you would like to give to parents that are going through a divorce and have adolescent children that are in the mix as they're doing that. And in terms of being able to manage it?
I would say that, especially going through a divorce or just having kids in general, that if you get to the point where you are going to separate and change, everything about how you and your kid was living before, to keep open communication. Because I know for me, avoiding it, thinking you're making it better, is just putting it off. And whenever that conversation comes, the longer you wait, the worse it's going to be. So I would say maintain communication and talk early and often.
So Joseph, what about, how do you handle blended families? If you could give a tip or two to to the audience, because we know we have a lot of blended families out there. We go through the divorce, we get remarried, we have additional children, there's a lot of that exists. What is your recommendation or tips that you can give to help us to cope with the change of a blended family?
So when we enter into counseling relationships, one of the things is we're not always looking at the problems. We don't need to identify all the negative things. Let's identify what the strengths are. Let's identify the factors that help us to all kind of be resilient. Let us realize that when we speak to one another, we're speaking to people who have their own opinions, thoughts, values. As a matter of fact, one of the problems when we blend a family is that there's probably conflict with the value system, right? And that's so seeking counseling, really helping everyone to understand that they have a voice in that whole process so that we can integrate the family in such a way that's healthy, right? The co-parenting thing is something, and sometimes maybe putting boundaries in place for the additional parents who don't have the primary custody or guardianship, but also realizing that everyone has a voice in that and trying to find some balance as to how we communicate with one another, and putting the kids in a place where they recognize that I got two sets of parents. They love me. They care for me. They want to see me lovable and loving. They ultimately want to see me be a great person in life. How do we kind of like marry all of that up? And that's different for each family.
So, but let's talk about the real issue that can exist, right? That's great when you have a blended family, it works well. It's great when you're divorced and you get along with the person that you used to be in a relationship with. But when there's conflict, or there's been abuse, or there's been trauma, or other things have happened in the household, and you begin to leave and take your child to take them from that environment, and you're trying to manage, and then you get a blended family. What do you do then?
First of all, you have to deal with the trauma. Unfortunately, let's just say, these days I work with a lot of adults who had adverse childhood experiences. And all of that stuff probably hinders them from being able to have healthy relationships anyway. And then if you look at a lot of the families that I see, there's multiple mental illnesses and adjustments in there. There's depression and anxiety within the whole family. So then you have to start peeling back the layers and dealing with each individual in the family system, so that making them whole individuals or healthy individuals, so that ultimately everyone could take their role and their responsibility and create a really, really healthy, supportive, resilient family system.
Well, you said a key word there, and that's a whole nother different episode, but we have challenges when it comes to mental illness, acknowledging it, knowing it, and dealing with it, yes, right? And when these things come about, we don't know what avenues to go to. We don't know how to solve them. We don't know how to ask for help. Right. First of all, we don't even know that that's what it is. Right. So, being able to diagnose that. So I really, one of the things that I know I have learned, and I've been divorced, and the things that I have learned from that, and you're right, as things happen in your life, you go through these things, but it's really to get help from a therapist, regardless to whether it's necessarily a problem. A therapist can help you do a lot that's internal. Yes. And it can help us to identify when a particular issue may exist emotionally or mentally, as we're moving forward. But we got to get over this fear of the word therapist. We know that's a fear, especially in our community. It's like, I'm not going to tell anybody all my business. I don't want them to know what I'm going through or what I'm dealing with. I'm a man. I'm a woman. I can deal with this myself. But when we don't, we only exasperate the fact that the mental illness is there and we're not going to a solution. Mm-hmm. So let's see if we have a question from our audience.
My comment is actually to Mr. Bryan. I commend you for taking on your son to teach him how to be a man, as I look at it, because I just feel a woman can't really teach a boy how to be a man. I mean, we can teach him how to be polite and courteous, things like that, but overall, when you get to that manhood, I just feel like the impact of a father is more what that young man may need, opposed to, just being up under his mother all the time and learning all the girly stuff when there's a lot of things about manhood. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. I know that it's really important that we allow the opportunity of the opposite sex, of the same sex, to be able to help our children, whether it's a girl with a girl or a man with a man. But there's also other influences of male figures, right? It may not be that husband, it could be that uncle, that grandfather, that other person that plays a predominant role in their life that helps to give that male image of how to operate, how to act, what's good, what's not. And that's why I think that role models are so important, regardless of sex. We all need to have someone that we can look up to, someone that we know can teach us the ropes of what to do and how to do it, as we move forward. I hope you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have. And we look forward to seeing you on our next one. But will all of you please join me in thanking my guests today?
Thank you.
Remember, for every hidden story that you let out, you're setting yourself free, because it's a secret that you don't have to hold any longer. Thank you. See you next time.